Garrett Bush didn't mince words when he accused the Cleveland Browns of lying, not just to the fans, but to themselves. His criticism cut deep because it exposed what many insiders have whispered for months. The Browns aren't protecting Shedeur Sanders, they're protecting their control. Every delay, every vague update about his development feels less like a coaching decision and more like a corporate maneuver to maintain power over a narrative they no longer own.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Behind closed doors, frustration brews between management, coaches, and even players like Myles Garrett, who've publicly praised Sanders' readiness. Yet Cleveland's leadership clings to an illusion of patience that looks increasingly like fear of losing their grip on a system that resists change. The real story isn't about whether Sanders can play, it's about why he isn't playing. His talent, discipline, and quiet leadership have become a silent indictment of an organization too insecure to evolve. While analysts like Mary Kay Cabot highlight his mechanics and maturity, the Browns continue to stall, hiding behind rhetoric about timing and development. But that facade is cracking. Sanders' professionalism amid dysfunction makes him impossible to ignore, and the harder Cleveland tries to control the narrative, the more they reveal their weakness. This isn't just a quarterback controversy, it's a reckoning with a culture that values control over progress. The NFL is in chaos right now, and the Cleveland Browns are squarely in the middle of it, after being called out for allegedly lying about Shedeur Sanders. Yes, lying. NFL insiders, fans, and analysts are all watching this unfold like it's a slow-motion car crash, and at the center of it, a young quarterback whose talent is impossible to ignore, and a team that seems terrified of letting him shine. What started as speculation has turned into a full-blown exposé of how the Browns are handling Sanders' development, or more accurately, how they're stalling it. And people aren't buying the spin anymore. Especially not Garrett Bush, a Cleveland media voice who did not hold back when calling out the organization's tactics. He laid it out plainly: the Browns are manipulating the media, twisting narratives, and actively downplaying Shedeur's readiness, not because he's unprepared, but because they're scared of what it means for their control over the franchise. Let's be clear. No one's arguing that Sanders isn't talented. In fact, that's exactly what makes this entire situation so hard to watch. He's been praised across the board for his preparation, his passing accuracy, and his mental maturity, everything you want in a starting quarterback. But instead of recognizing that and giving him a real shot, the Browns are playing politics. Behind closed doors, they're locking horns over who gets to pull the strings. And that tug of war? It's coming at the expense of a player who could very well be their future. From the outside, it might look like a typical case of developing a rookie, but insiders say it's anything but normal. The delay tactics, the strategic leaks, the public messaging about timing and patience, it's all starting to look like smoke and mirrors. The Browns are trying to sell the idea that this is just part of a responsible developmental curve. But experts aren't buying it. They're calling it what it really is: a cover-up. A calculated effort to protect egos, maintain internal power structures, and avoid the chaos that comes with admitting that maybe, just maybe, their guy isn't the best guy anymore. Even more damning is the split happening inside the locker room. Players like Myles Garrett have openly shown support for Sanders, highlighting the trust he's already earned from veterans. That kind of backing doesn't come easy. It usually means someone's proving themselves in practice, showing leadership, and gaining respect. Yet the front office seems to be on a completely different page. And that disconnect? It's a symptom of something much deeper than just a quarterback controversy. This isn't just about who starts on Sunday. It's about the identity of a franchise that's been clinging to control and image management for years. The Browns have a history of dysfunction, rotating coaches, questionable decisions, and internal fractures. And what's happening with Sanders feels like an extension of that pattern. The more talent threatens the status quo, the more the organization retreats into fear. Let's talk about the media manipulation, because this isn't just passive miscommunication, it's active narrative shaping. The Browns have been accused of feeding selective information to the press, framing Shedeur's development as slower than it actually is, and promoting a storyline that conveniently supports their wait-and-see approach. But NFL commentators and reporters are seeing through the facade. There's a clear gap between what the team says publicly and what's happening behind closed doors. And that contradiction? It's not going unnoticed. Take Mary Kay Cabot, for example. She's pointed to Shedeur's elite mechanics, his ability to handle pressure, and his composure as indicators that he's more than ready. And yet, the organization continues to push the narrative that he's not quite there. Because acknowledging his readiness would force them to make uncomfortable changes. It would disrupt the fragile ecosystem they've built around their current strategy and possibly embarrass those in charge. This fear of change is what's really driving the entire saga. Shedeur represents more than a talented rookie. He represents a shift in power. If he steps in and succeeds, it validates the critics, exposes the internal dysfunction, and calls out years of mismanagement. That's not just a personnel change, that's a reckoning. And it's one the Browns clearly aren't ready to face. Meanwhile, Sanders continues to show up, stay focused, and lead by example. No media drama, no outbursts, no public whining. Just work. That quiet professionalism stands in stark contrast to the circus around him. And maybe that's what scares the Browns the most. He's not just a great player, he's unshakably composed. He doesn't need the organization's spin machine because his game speaks for itself. And that's threatening to a system that thrives on controlling the message. Insiders say the locker room is starting to fracture under the pressure. Coaching staff, management, and veteran players are reportedly not on the same page, with tension growing over how to handle Sanders. And when your star defensive player is publicly supporting the guy your front office refuses to start, that's not a small issue, that's a cultural crack splitting open in real time. The Browns' insistence on waiting for the right moment is sounding more and more like a stall tactic. And at this point, it's hurting their credibility. If your team is floundering and your young quarterback is ready, why keep him on the bench? What are you afraid of? Success? Growth? Accountability? The answer, according to analysts, is control. The Browns have long struggled with internal power dynamics, and introducing someone like Shedeur, who brings not just talent but leadership, means a reshuffling of influence. That's not something you can coach around. That's an existential shift. And that's exactly what the current leadership seems desperate to avoid. Even more frustrating for fans is that this isn't happening in a vacuum. Around the league, other young quarterbacks are getting their shots. Teams are taking risks, making bold moves, and adjusting to the modern game. Meanwhile, Cleveland is stuck clinging to a narrative that no longer holds water. The longer they delay, the more obvious it becomes that this isn't about what's best for the team, it's about what's easiest for the people in charge. And let's be honest, how long can you keep the lid on a rising star? Sanders isn't just good. He's undeniably good. The accuracy, the mechanics, the mental toughness, he checks every box. His work ethic isn't in question. His leadership isn't in question. The only thing in question is why the Browns refuse to acknowledge it. The clock is ticking. The fan base is restless. The media is circling. And Shedeur? He's still grinding, still quiet, still waiting. But the pressure is building, and eventually, something has to give. Whether it's a change in strategy, a coaching shakeup, or a locker room revolt, this storyline is headed toward a climax. And when it hits, don't be surprised if it's Shedeur Sanders standing tall in the middle of the storm, proving once and for all that he was ready all along. The Browns can keep dodging, spinning, and delaying, but the truth has a way of breaking through. And right now, it's becoming harder and harder to hide the fact that this franchise is afraid of its own future. Let's not sugarcoat it. This is about fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of losing face. Fear of change. But that fear is costing them something bigger: momentum, trust, and maybe even the very quarterback who could save the franchise. If you're watching this thinking, how is this real? You're not alone. The dysfunction is loud, the manipulation is blatant, and the resistance to change is exhausting. But in the middle of all that noise, Shedeur Sanders is doing exactly what great players do: staying ready. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the Browns are sabotaging themselves? Should Sanders be starting already? Hit like, share it with someone who's been following the drama, and subscribe so you don't miss the next meltdown. Because with Cleveland, there's always another one coming. We've seen this movie before. Talented young quarterback, toxic franchise, power-hungry front office. It's practically a genre at this point. But what makes this particular saga so infuriating is that Shedeur Sanders isn't some unknown project. He's not a raw prospect fumbling through rookie mistakes or riding the hype train with nothing to show for it. No, he's already proving himself in the most important way, by being better than the excuses they're using to sideline him. He's showing up early, staying late, studying film like a veteran, and when he gets the reps, he delivers. He's got that composure that doesn't rattle under pressure, that ability to see the field and thread a needle like he's been doing it for years. According to people who actually watch him work, he's putting on clinics in practice, hitting throws with precision, commanding huddles, reading defenses like a chessboard. This isn't just potential. This is production. And yet, silence. No elevation. No public backing. Just vague coach speak about development timelines and sticking to the plan. At some point, you have to ask, what is the plan? Because it sure doesn't look like developing your most talented player. It looks like protecting egos, avoiding controversy, and pretending the locker room isn't teetering on the edge of rebellion. And let's talk about that locker room, because it's not just fans who are frustrated. There are whispers, loud whispers, that some of the team's veterans are openly questioning the front office's decision-making. And when a respected player like Myles Garrett is giving Sanders his support, that's not a casual endorsement. That's a signal. That's leadership seeing leadership. That's a player who knows what it looks like when someone is ready, and watching management pretend they're not. The tension between players and management is real. You can feel it in the body language, in the press conferences, in the subtle jabs disguised as team-first talk. These guys want to win. They need someone who can lead them. And right now, the one person who seems capable of doing that is being left on the sidelines because the people upstairs can't stomach the idea of being wrong. And isn't that the core of it? The Browns have spent so long defending their own decisions, spinning narratives, and avoiding accountability that they've boxed themselves into a corner. Starting Sanders now would mean admitting that maybe their timeline was wrong. That maybe the guy they've been hyping up isn't the one. And for a franchise already drowning in reputation rehab, that kind of humility is just not on the menu. So instead, they do what dysfunctional organizations always do: deflect, delay, and disguise. They act like this is about strategy, when it's clearly about self-preservation. And meanwhile, every week that goes by, Sanders' case gets louder, not because he's demanding attention, but because he doesn't have to. His talent speaks for itself. His discipline speaks for itself. The contradictions between what the Browns say and what we see are becoming impossible to ignore. Garrett Bush and other local media have been peeling back the curtain. They're not playing along with the sanitized PR statements. They're calling out the double standards, the manipulation, the fact that this franchise seems more afraid of change than it is of losing. That's a brutal assessment, but an accurate one. You can only sell the "he's not ready yet" line for so long before people start asking, then what exactly is he waiting for? Because based on every credible report, every player's comments, and every expert's analysis, there's no good reason. No football reason. Just politics. Just fear. And let's be honest, this kind of organizational fear is exactly why the Browns can't get over the hump. They create chaos and then act surprised when it shows up on game day. They talk about culture, but when someone actually embodies it, they hesitate. They prioritize control over results, optics over outcomes. And Shedeur Sanders? He's not just a quarterback. He's a threat to that entire system. Because if he walks in and succeeds, it rewrites the narrative. It exposes the flaws. It forces the team to admit that talent development isn't just about waiting. It's about recognizing when someone is already there. And look, this isn't just some fan wish casting. NFL insiders, analysts who know this league inside and out, are already saying it. This kid has what it takes. His game tape doesn't lie. His mechanics are clean, his accuracy is sharp, his vision is elite. He's already doing the things that coaches spend years trying to teach. The fact that he's still being boxed out speaks volumes, not about his readiness, but about the organization's insecurity. It's like the Browns are standing at the edge of progress, staring into the future, and then taking a step back. And for what? To protect someone's pride? To avoid a headline? Here's the reality. The headlines are coming either way. Either they bite the bullet, let Sanders lead and deal with the fallout, or they keep burying him and the situation explodes from the inside. The clock isn't just ticking on the season, it's ticking on the franchise's credibility. And the worst part? They're wasting time. Every game Sanders doesn't play is a lost opportunity to build chemistry, to grow, to let him lead. The league moves fast. You don't get infinite chances to get it right. And the longer they stall, the more likely it is that they miss their moment completely. Because make no mistake, this isn't just about today. This is about setting the tone for the next 5 years. About showing your players, your fans, and the rest of the league that you can recognize greatness when it's right in front of you. And right now, the Browns are failing that test. The front office can keep feeding the media their talking points. They can keep leaking selective info, keep framing the story to suit their agenda, but the cracks are showing. The contradictions are stacking up. And no amount of spin can hide the truth for long. Eventually, the pressure builds. The fans get louder. The players speak up. The team starts losing games it shouldn't. And then what? Then you're in damage control mode. Then you've got a full-blown quarterback controversy, a fractured locker room, and a fan base ready to riot. Or you could just do the right thing. Start Shedeur Sanders. Not because the media said so. Not because the fans are screaming. But because he earned it. Because he's done everything right, and the only thing holding him back is a franchise too scared to admit they're not in control anymore. And let's face it, control is an illusion anyway. You can't micromanage talent. You can't PR spin your way out of leadership. At some point, you have to trust what's right in front of you. And what's in front of the Browns right now is a quarterback who's ready to change the trajectory of their entire franchise, if they'll let him. It's not too late, but it's getting close. The Browns are standing at a crossroads. On one side, growth, risk, and the potential for real success. On the other, comfort, denial, and the slow, painful decay of what could have been. And in the middle of it all, Shedeur Sanders, waiting for his shot, while everyone else plays politics. If you've been watching this unfold thinking, how does this keep happening? Trust, you're not the only one. It's the same dysfunction, the same mistakes, the same refusal to embrace change over and over again. But maybe this time, it won't just be another wasted chapter. Maybe Sanders will break the cycle. Maybe Cleveland will finally get out of its own way. Here's the kicker, the Browns know they're being watched. They know every press conference, every snap taken by a less than stellar starter, every sideline shot of Shedeur Sanders standing there with a helmet in hand and that locked-in stare. It's all being dissected. Social media's on fire. Analysts are talking. Fans are screaming. But the team keeps doubling down like no one can see the house of cards shaking. It's not just about bad decision-making at this point, it's about stubbornness. That deeply Cleveland brand of self-sabotage that turns potential into pipe dreams and headlines into horror stories. And you'd think, after years of mediocrity, after so many almosts and maybes, that they'd finally take the leap when given a real shot at something better. But no. Instead, we're watching this team try to outmaneuver its own future. Like they're more comfortable controlling a slow descent than risking the launch of a rising star. The internal split is growing more visible by the week. The vibe on the field doesn't lie. You've got veterans who want to win now, frustrated with a coaching staff that keeps making safe choices that aren't working. You've got a fan base that's not just impatient, they're exhausted. And you've got a quarterback who's doing everything right, while the people in charge are doing everything but the right thing. The phrase, timing is everything, keeps getting thrown around, as if waiting is some kind of virtue. But timing without intent is just procrastination. And when you've got someone like Sanders, waiting too long doesn't just stall progress, it corrodes it. You think a locker room can't tell when the best guy isn't being given a chance? You think players don't see the politics? They do. They always do. And when trust erodes inside a team, when decisions stop making sense from a football standpoint, you lose more than games. You lose culture. You lose buy-in. And the Browns, for all their attempts to build a winning culture, are quietly letting it rot from the inside out. Because here's what no one wants to say out loud. The longer they bench Shedeur, the more damage they do to their own credibility. He's not a long-term project. He's not a maybe-someday player. He's already showing traits of a franchise quarterback, and the NFL doesn't hand you that lightly. If you have one, you build around him. You don't hide him behind excuses. And maybe that's what this is really about. Maybe the Browns weren't ready for someone like him. Someone with poise, precision, and a quiet kind of power that doesn't ask for attention, but demands respect. Maybe that presence exposes just how shaky the leadership structure really is. Because if Sanders is ready, and all signs say he is, then everything they've set up to now, it collapses. So instead, they stall. They spin. They wait. But time isn't on their side. Every week Sanders doesn't play is another week the team slips further from relevance. And eventually, the noise becomes impossible to tune out. The media will get louder. Players will speak more candidly. The fan base will reach a boiling point. And the Browns will either adapt, or they'll implode under the weight of their own indecision. Let's not get it twisted. This isn't just a personnel issue. This is a franchise identity crisis. The Browns are at war with themselves, old habits versus new potential. And at the center of that war is a quarterback who could be the answer, if only they'd stop treating him like a question mark. And yes, we've all seen what happens when teams mishandle talent. Careers stall. Momentum dies. And fans are left wondering what could have been. The Browns are playing a dangerous game, not just with Sanders, but with the future of their organization. Because if this situation keeps spiraling, and it is spiraling, they won't just be dealing with criticism. They'll be dealing with consequences. How long before players stop trusting the staff? How long before Sanders himself starts questioning whether Cleveland is the place where his career can truly begin? You don't get many chances to get this right. And right now, the Browns are fumbling a golden one. The smart move? Own the missteps, shift the narrative, and start your guy. Let the talent speak. Let the locker room unite around someone who's already earned their respect. Let the fans believe again. Because here's the truth, Shedeur Sanders doesn't need Cleveland to validate him. But Cleveland desperately needs him to save them from themselves. If you're still here, you're feeling it too. The frustration, the disbelief, the urge to scream into the void. So don't hold back. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you're done with the excuses, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in this saga. Because this is far from over.